Pierre Nkurunziza was the former PE teacher who became president of the Central African country of Burundi. Like its neighbour Rwanda, Burundi's history is deeply scarred by intertribal violence between the Hutus and the Tutsis. The independent human rights journalist Vava Tampa says a major conflict in 1972 had a personal impact on the future president.
Pierre Nkurunziza was 8 years old and he witnessed the killing of his father. He often spoke about what his family endured afterward. His family became incredibly poor. Everything was taken from their houses. They were forced to move into another village, and that changed his entire life and changed his entire perspective.
And did that make him somebody who wanted to take up arms, somebody who wanted to defend his tribal people?
I don't think so. I think Pierre Nkurunziza could have remained a PE teacher had another ethnic killing not started in 1993.
And what happened in 1993 to change all that?
There was a coup d'etat which led into another bout of ethnic killing in Burundi. Nkurunziza himself often spoke of escaping death in the campus of Bujumbura, where he was an assistant lecturer. He also spoke about two of his siblings. Two of them were essentially killed during those early days of ethnic killings. As a consequence, he felt he had no other options but to go into the bush and become a rebel leader to defend his people. He joined up with three of his siblings. All three were also killed in the fighting to overthrow the Tutsi-led government in the capital. So when he rejoined society in 2003 after signing the peace agreement, he had essentially lost his father first and lost 5 of his siblings because of the ethnic killings in the country.
We ended the civil war by negotiations, and we reached the ceasefire agreements and the Arusha Peace Accord. This Arusha Peace Accord is the base, the foundation for our constitution.
After the peace deal, Pierre Nkurunziza joined the government as Minister for Good Governance. Then, in 2005, after his party won a landslide victory in elections, he became president. So was the country and the world optimistic about his approach to the job?
In the very early days, many people had high hopes. This was someone who had lived the consequences of divisions of ethnicities in Burundi. So there were incredible hopes that he would lead his country out of this crisis. And in the very early days, Nkurunziza gave all of us hopes to believe he would be a different man.
This former sports lecturer knows how to combine work with keeping fit and staying in touch with the people.
After becoming president, he lifted the curfew that had been in place since 1972 when his father was killed. In addition to all of that, Burundi contributed soldiers in UN peacekeeping missions in Somalia. He made all the right move, and there were really hopes he would continue to make all the right moves to stay on the right path. But all of that, of course, changed in 2015.
It was an election where the outcome was known before people even voted. Burundi's president, Pierre Nkurunziza, has won a third term. His critics say that's a violation of the constitution. Despite a boycott by the main opposition parties, officials say there was a massive turnout.
Against the advice of everyone else, Nkurunziza became the first of 5 leaders in Africa's Great Lake region to essentially breach their constitutional term limit. Nkurunziza claimed that he won the elections with over 90% of the vote, and that led into huge protests, huge fighting amongst his political party. Over 1,200 people were killed in a space of 2 years.
We're getting out of Bujumbura that a coup has taken place in Burundi. An army general says senior officers are dismissing the president, Nkurunziza, amid a lot of unrest on the streets over his re-election bid.
There was international pressure, of course. When the international community decided to cut aid, he responded by essentially expelling all foreign press from Burundi. And when the ICC decided to start investigating claims of crimes against humanity and war crimes in Burundi, he decided to pull Burundi out of the ICC, becoming the first country in Africa to actually pull out of the ICC. When the UN continued to apply pressure and to push him on human rights issues, he decided to close the UN office in Burundi. And he didn't stop simply with human rights issues. Even when the pandemic, COVID-19, broke out, and the World Health Organization began asking leaders across the world to essentially apply social distancing measures and so forth, Nkurunziza refused to listen. And when he received more pressure from the World Health Organization, he decided to expel all health organizations from Burundi.
How have the people of Burundi reacted to his death?
There are mixed feelings. Formally, everyone in Burundi is observing the 7-day of funeral. But behind closed doors, people are, if not celebrating, at least sensing a sense of relief that they have escaped another crisis.
And where does his death leave the country now? What's going to happen?
There are reasons to be hopeful. His political party had essentially forced him to step aside. Pierre Nkurunziza was not planning on stepping aside by 2020. He wanted to remain president until maybe 2032. So the very fact that his political party forced him to step aside to appease tension, that tells us that there are still rational beings within the ranks and files of his former labor movement.
Vava Tampa on Pierre Nkurunziza, who's died aged 55.